Hiya. I'm listening to the Idols as we draw tonight. I don't know if you know this band, but I like them. Anyways, so hello. It's 7 p.m. in the evening on a Thursday, and I'm joined in the studio by both the cats right now because they're bored and I'm boring, and so what little interesting things I could do, they're gonna watch and judge. So, right, guys? Yeah. Baby is like, he's talking too much. I'm going to my bed. So she's walking across the room and telling me off, basically. Okay. So earlier today, I talked earlier today about using the mechanism of drawing thumbnails in order to come up with material, basically, for interesting panels or interesting images, and looking at things like television programs or films that you might enjoy, and sitting down and breaking down some of those compositions from stills you might find on the interwebs. So that's what I did, and then I came back on a couple hours later and just finished that off. Just finished the list of them off and drew this entire page. So there's 40, 8, 16, 24, 32, 48 images here, and that can be used in order to tell some kind of narrative. And you don't have to use all of them. You could use some of them. But what this is doing is sort of saying, hey, here's all these sort of compositions that somehow, somewhat compelling. And the step then would be to take these and to see them outside of the rectangular form that they're all drawn in right now. Just like the 3-page 18 images from Wally Wood that I put up, that I posted earlier today. So this is just another avenue. The thing with the 18 images based on Wally Wood's suggestions is the reality of that is that it's the image or the story concept is already there, right? And I've drawn the images, and it's just a case of reinterpreting those in someone's own individual style. Whereas the 48 panels that I've done here today are just a random smattering of images that you can utilize in whatever combinations or whatever progression of panels, whatever sequence of panels that you so choose in order to tell your story. And just like yesterday with the way that we looked at how can I alternatively structure my page, how can I alternatively enhance, expand, reduce some of these panels for their impact on the page. Well, once you figure out what you're going to do with these, you could readily do that as well and come up with some kind of language for yourself for how to tell the story. And by doing it as a thumbnail, okay, and not sitting down with some sort of source image where you're doing your best to copy it, so that it is as representational as it can be of whoever the performers are, whatever. Rather than doing that, you've drawn this, relatively simplistic or abstract bunch of characters, so they can, so that they can be interpreted in whatever way you want. Enhance those lines and enhance those facial constructions pertaining to whatever character based on the image that you're utilizing. It's not like the first 12 panels are featuring one guy, unless you so choose that that's the case. So there's some interesting things that are possible to do with this as a mechanism in order for exploration. And then, of course, you can scan something like this and expand upon those panels, or you can scan something like this and put larger spaces between them, leave the imagery as it is, but put textual elements above or below the panels. You can come up with some interesting way of putting word balloons above or below, for each of these panels, and to progress those pages along in some kind of unique fashion, right? So if you're doing a one-page story and you've got something like this to use, so I'm going to switch cameras now. Turn on the overhead here. So there's the original page. There's the whole thing, and the tools that we used for it are those two simple Royale and Langnickel. Fantastic names. Yeah, just nice little pens here. It's got a brush tip and it's got a marker tip, so they worked out pretty good. So, okay, so we've got all these panels now, right? Yahoo, Chris! And, okay, so what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to try something out. I'm going to see if I can put this to practice after suggesting that you should be able to tell a story based on utilizing these panels. Look at him go. What do we got? Oh, this is... I've got so many suggestions in here. Salty, how you doing? Hunting stuffed animals on safari. Is that a suggestion or is that just a random statement? I don't know. I'll write it in the book. Hunting stuffed animals on safari. I can never hear the word animals without thinking how one of my grandkids pronounced them ambigles. It just sort of lives in my head rent free. That it's a hobby. He's like, great. So we got these are some random suggestions. Yeah, this is all licensed stuff. That's why it's in this pile. Varsity guy riding a skateboard and jumping over the school. I don't have any real images. Sentient gun is addicted to snorting gunpowder. Sonder, whatever that means. Kazoo type. Yeah, that's licensed. Potassium night, staying in intergalactic. Well, none of those work. Do a comic based on cheeky crank calls, and that's from Marshall Lee. I think we'll do that. Because it's open-ended, right? As opposed to being these franchise licensed characters. So today's suggestion for a comic is a comic based on cheeky crank calls. So I'll write that in the chat. And then I'm gonna take these take this suggestion, I'm going to take these panels and we're going to use them to tell this story. Thank you for that suggestion, Marsh. Okay, so we've got 48 images to choose from for our comic of comic based on cheeky crank calls. Cheeky. Cheeky. So, here we go. So we've got a comic based on cheeky crank calls. Now we've got So we've got somebody typing, right? We've got that for an image. We've got not a lot of images of people holding phones. So we got one that looks like somebody could be holding a phone down here. So let's just try using these and thinking outside the box, because in my brain the old school cheeky crank call means you've answered it on your cellular device, right? Or your home phone. Okay, so we're going to take some of these. So I'm going to check off the ones that we use. So I'm going to use this one, I think. We're going to use this one. This one. This one. Why not? Let's just stick down to this area here. And here. There's one here. Okay, so we got a whole bunch that we can use. So let's take our little panels that we've got here and start checking them off as we go. So let's start here with this. These two people sitting here. And this could be very well. So I'll click in on those a little closer. All right, and so you can see which ones I'm going to use. So we've got these two guys sitting. This could very well be a psychiatrist and a patient. We've got somebody standing up with a bed or a couch or something in front of them. We've got somebody standing up at a window. We've got a person walking down a corridor holding something up, maybe a cell phone in their hand. We've got somebody standing here outside. Maybe they could be having a phone to their ear. Yeah, we've got a bunch of different opportunities that we can interpret however we want them to be interpreted for our story. So this is the whole idea. When you're doing all these thumbnails, that you can then sit down with said thumbnails and use them to interpret a story. So when you're drawing all these thumbnails, you haven't got anything prescribed. I mean, you're not drawing them with an objective in mind outside of the fact that these can possibly be utilized in some way. So, okay, so let's look at, we got a page up, and what I'm going to do is give a kind of bordering frame around it, and I'm going to pull the camera back because this is way too tight. Oops, I went the other way. Okay. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a page using these, and Corbin is going to carry on beside me while I do it. See that? Yeah, nip you in the bud, pal, before you even get started with your shenanigans. Shenanigans. He kept trying to lick my elbow earlier today as I'm trying to do the stream. Just elbow-licking maniac, this guy. That's you. Okay, so I've drawn a really simple inside border for here. I've been doing a lot of portrait pages, and I'm going to do a landscape with these. So, okay, we've got our panels. Which one do I pick to start? We can do the psychiatrist's office. Yeah, why not? Why don't we just start there? So I'm going to draw. I'm going to use this little ruler because it's nice and new and easy and small. So it's got shapes. So I'll put down a rough shape for our first panel, and this is where we'll begin our starting point here. Okay, Corbin. Okay, Corbin, take it easy, huh? All right, so we've got the two guys sitting here in the room. So tell me, what do you think of your parents? Yeah, whatever psychiatrists do. Okay, so I'm just going to take an orange pen, and I'm going to use this and just start putting it in our first panel. And can you see? Is that? Yeah, you can see. I can see it. So I'm just going to start drawing our characters. And so I know what the shape of them is. We've already figured that out in our thumbnails. It doesn't invite you to jump up on the desk. Get off. I mean, having studio cats is all nice and fun and dandy, but they get a little too familiar. Okay, so thank you, by the way, for your suggestion, Salty. I got that in the book. I like that. It's a fun one. Okay, so here's our character. Okay, and we're just drawing him in. So this is this guy that I'm drawing now. Okay, and so I've got the rough shape of his form. Now I just need to make something of it, you know. Now I just need to take add some dimension to it, add some shape. And so this is where you draw on your, understanding of fabric, or your understanding of the shapes of the body, and all these little tidbits and stuff that we're learning over time, right? So I'm taking this, and we're going to put his arm. His arm is down here, crossing over his lap. So let's put that like so, and we'll get his sweater. I think he's wearing like a sweater. And we're gonna have some more fun with this and add some yellow and things to it, and just explore this. And then we'll put his knee up here so that his arm is resting across the top of his leg. So there's not too much thinking that has to go on here, because I've done all this sort of a lot of the considerations already for the panel layout, and the shape of the scene and things like that. So it's just literally just taking this and turning it into something, and this is where your own stylistic choices might come into play a little more. But over time, your toolbox, let's call it a toolbox for argument's sake, is going to have more and more selections of things that you can draw upon in pursuing whatever narrative it is that you're working on at the moment, so that when you sit down and let's say somebody gives you a script, or from a script, so you can look at that and go, okay, I got an idea for a viewpoint from a taxi. I've got an idea, for how to lay out that scene, or considerations like that you've already made, because you've done plenty of these sort of little things where and your brain retains all this stuff. It really does. It's just a case of accessing it, folks. At least I believe so. So here's our first guy, and now we've got him in the frame, and so I'm going to put some folds in the knee of his pantalones, and so here's his body is very right, and we'll put his second leg sloped down like so. Okay, and then we'll bring up some dark value in there. Now we've got our second character is sitting behind him. Okay, so we've got this guy now, and there he is here. And now we've got his shrink wrapper on the other side here. Never trust a person with a pencil and a clipboard. No. And that's a useless piece of advice number 174 from Christopher. Never trust people with pencils and clipboards. Says the guy who's got clipboards and pencils galore around him, right? Okay, so here is our psychiatrist character. Now, I'm giving him different sleeves. This guy's kind of wearing a slouchy sweater and pants. And it's not specific what he's actually sitting on. It doesn't matter for the most part. So here is the psychiatrist now, who's got his hands resting on his book, right? And his second hand is, we're going to have him writing here in the book. So there's the pen. Can you see that okay? I can zoom in on this part. I don't want you to lose the connection between this and this. Whoop, whoop. There we go. So here he is, and we're drawing him here now. Okay. So whatever this scene was initially, when I did the little thumbnail of it, for the life of me, I have no idea what it was. But in the context of our suggestion for today, which comes from Marsh, of a comic based on cheeky crank calls, well, it fits for what we're going to use it for. Like we're applying it to something. So the pose works. So I'm putting him wearing a comfortable and non-threatening sweater vest. Okay. So here is this pose now, and let's put the book in his lap. So there's no book here, but we need it for our scene, right? What does a book look like? Whatever you want that book to look like, folks. So now we get to decide on a chair. I wish I knew what that scene was. That's gonna bug me. Well, first let's draw our guy. So I'm giving some glasses. A little bit of facial hair here. And a comfy, non-threatening beard. Okay, so here is let's give him a comb over. Why? Because ha ha ha. So there's our therapist. So tell me about your problems. Whatever they say. And let's put the chair that he's sitting in. So we're using this. It looks like a chair that the character's on. So we're putting some shape into this chair. figure that out a little more as we go along. So we know his leg is going to carry over here, and I believe it kind of looks like his legs are crossed. So let's apply that. Or maybe we won't, depending on how hard it is. Ish. I meant for it to look this awkward. No. Okay, so let's extend this chair down now. I'm going to move the page for a second, just to get an easier way to put this form in. And then we're going to put a cushion that's sticking out from underneath them. We'll fill in that side. So here we are, and here we are going. So now I have to put his leisure footwear, which is non-threatening. It's a dumb joke. It's just a dumb joke. All right. Okay, and then here's his second leg and his foot there. Okay, and then we've got to put the lower part of his chair in. So I'm looking for the center point on the chair, because you know, if you put a chair, the legs of a chair, like say you have a singular leg, if you put it too close to the front, honestly that chair should fall back. If you put it too close to the back, then that chair should fall forward. If you put the pedestal in the center, then in theory it should support all of the weight. Well, I don't have the panel to draw the bottom. So now in the image there's just this random dark value in behind, and then there's a diagonal wall that exists here. So we can do that and put that scene together. Now, I think what I might do is put in a big window pane, okay? Because nothing says, hey, be comfortable and tell me all about the things that are bugging you, like a giant floor-to-ceiling window in the office to distract you. Makes perfect sense, doesn't it? Okay, so yeah, there we go. I'm going to put a really light line right there. Now, if that light line meets this line right here, then that tells me that this wall goes this way. But that's not to say that I don't want to draw a bookshelf in front of them or something, right? So we're going to just populate the environment a little bit in ways that aren't in our source image, okay? So we can put, so I'm thinking about planters that my wife, or some plant holders that, you're snoring, that my wife has upstairs. And I'm going to incorporate those into this image. So that's the sort of thing I'm talking about, where you can draw on the real world and actual things in your life to put into your stories. If you're trying to figure out something to draw, just give yourself that. So So now I'm going to put a flower, a plant in there. And then we're going to draw this city scene background. And so we've taken this random panel that we've chosen off of the list of 48 little things that we just doodled, and we're applying it to today's story. Okay. Now I'm drawing this in orange pen, but we're going to add some more values to it. We're going to add some more colors in here. Okay, so there's our flower pot here in his office, and we know that we can now draw in this trim for the old window here, and then we're going to put this city view in our window. So, but before that, let's put something in the background here. So I'm going to put a bookshelf in. And I'm just placing lines randomly here. But let's think about shelving, okay? So shelving it's a bunch of boxes, but we've got the face of the shelf. It's not just flat lines. Terrible perspective. That does the job. So and then we'll put that line moving across, and like a sir and a like a so bookshelf. And so we'll populate this with numerous copies of his own novel on I'm Okay and You're Okay. So a non-threatening book that many people enjoy reading. So we've got this coming from this. So as I'm drawing in these varied book shapes, I have to remember that how they look on a bookshelf, right? And this will be a whole bunch of copies of his own book. So they'll have a uniform size. So if the shelf is this deep, then the shelf is this deep. So there's the back of the shelf right there. Does that make sense? Sure does, Chris. Okay, good. Okay, and then we'll draw this book here, this size. Okay, and we'll put those there, and then we're going to carry this line down so that we know this is in shadow, the back of the bookshelf. Is this starting to look like a bookshelf? I hope it is. So, and then we're going to still put some things on top of said bookshelf, but this is, so here's something you can do to keep it interesting. Put a book on an angle, right? Knock a book over. Let's say this is a book about, exotic aquariums, and he lent it to somebody, so it's missing. So these books have fallen over. There we go. So we've got our bookshelf in place, and so all of this business that we're adding in here has nothing to do with our thumbnail. This is just enhancing the composition from our initial idea. So I'll put a big bowl here that he throws his keys in when he comes to the office, so he knows when they are, when it's time for him to go home. He also uses it for making cookies when no one is booked appointments with him. And then we put a framed picture here. So I'm just thinking about the random things that we put on the top of shelves in our dedicated spaces for whatever we use those for. And then we'll put a random shaped, some kind of award for the best shrink wrapper. Okay, so there's that business, and then we can, on the wall behind him, let's put, well, first off, I'm going to do this. I want to bump this room in here a little bit more. Okay, from the edge of the window. Now, I'm going to put on the wall a big I'm going to put a big frame picture. And then we're good. Then we can put on some wallpaper and draw the window and then move on with our lives into the next panel. So just looks like a random rectangle for now. But hopefully, see that? I was using a ruler for a while. I stuck with it. And then this will be, of course, abstract, because why in the world would we want to have something that people in the office are actually going to look at and go, oh, that looks like a boat. No, let's just do big old shapes, and in that way it's fancy, you know. And then when I add a couple more values, we can add some more quality to this fancy abstract image. I'm trying to channel a Gupta. Gupta, a Montreal artist. That because his wife got sick, he stepped out of the art scene and was just continuing to paint at home in his retirement years, taking care of his wife. And so they realized as she got sick and people were doing home visits, their house has about 90 pieces in it. And so, like full scale, mixed media, it even framed things, and so they had a big exhibition and celebrating this artist. So I'm putting the light source coming from the window. Okay, so if that's the case, and we're going to have some shadows projected on the wall a little bit. Here's our bowl, and then there's one from our bookshelf, and in the back of our shelf here is in shadow, and then we'll have some shadow on the floor. On the floor, like so. Okay, so there's our room with our characters, and I've left enough space. So what I do when I do put the city in, honestly, it's going to be covered up by, there's going to be text here, there's text here, text here, there's availability of text there, and so here's our first character. Put some little lines in his eyes, give him something to him. And so now, since he's facing his back to this light source, let's apply some of that value over here with him. and then on this arm as well. On the side of that hand, there's a little peak of light. Okay, so here's our guy. And since we're doing that, why don't we see? I was going to do this with a yellow Arteza marker, but well, we're in it now. So we'll just carry this over. Like so. And on the side of a shoe, side of this shoe, side of the chair. So we've got two sources, the overhead and then the window. So we're just having fun, adding a little bit of form. See, the shadow should be here, like this, not the way I put it. Okay. So there's our guy. And a little bit there. A bit there. Doo-dah, doo-dah. Yeah. So there we go. So there's our panel. We've got some interesting forms moving around in the composition, right? And some interesting things happening there. But we've taken this little thumbnail from this whole page of thumbnails, and we've managed to turn this into our first panel. Today's suggestion is a comic based on cheeky crank calls. Cheeky, cheeky. And so with that, we're going to have the therapist saying, do you know why you feel compelled to do this? And he goes, oh, I don't know. I just like it, I guess. Yeah, or whatever this conversation is. So let's think about outside the window. And so I can see, I'm going to zoom in for you. Clicky, 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 clicky. So in the original thumbnail, we've got these shapes here. Well, let's use that to inform us about our outside. Okay, and we're just going to put those in to the image, and then we'll have another one. I think it's up here, and then I think that there's something above his head. Maybe I just missed the background value, but we'll put that that in there as well. Might as well just carry it down like so. So I'm going to just use that sort of basic language, that basic sorry, just a sec, my music just stopped. So I'm going to use that basic framework that we have for what's outside his window, and then I'm going to develop something a little more than that he sees from the inside of the office. Alright, so we've got this shape, and we'll put some lines going this way, and we'll add some little bits of character to it, and just to keep the the buildings interesting. So I'm running some lines that for some windows. And then we'll do the same. We're just putting some interesting shapes together. And then what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to come in with a white and cut out some squares that way. So bear with us, folks. Just going to take us a second, so talk amongst yourselves there, you know. So I'm just putting a bunch of geometric shapes together and implying buildings and so on and so forth. But really, I'm not overly concerned about like this really clearly defined fancy city that is exacting detail. This is largely going to be covered up by text. So that doesn't matter. And then on top of that, we're going to have some fun with this as well in a second here. So this is a problem with drawing city scenes, is it takes forever. Alright, so here, sorry, I'm flying all over the darn place there. I'll pull back that camera, I apologize for that. So you can see here we've got city elements coming together, and I'm just going to throw some more random shapes here in the foreground that implies a lot more buildings and things, and then I'm going to add that yellow in that I was talking about earlier. So now we're just going down to shapes at this point. Not a lot of details on this side. Because as much as there could be, we don't want to distract from the point of this page, and that's these two dudes in the room talking about feelings. Okay, so there's our panel. So here's our first thumbnail, and here's what we've put together from that. So I'm just putting the yellow throughout the what's happening outside here, outside of our window. Leaving some little spots, little white areas to peek through. Just to move the eye around in here. And hopefully push that back. I hope so. And I am never been good at coloring large areas in a consistent value with markers. Just never have been. I always leave those splotchy bits of business and so forth. I call it my style. So I've got white Poscas kicking around here. And so what I'm going to do is put. Well, that's pretty. That's pretty wet. You know, let's take it easy on how much we're putting down there. Okay, I overshook my pen. Maybe that tip is just too big. Yeah, it's just too big. Let's use this jelly pen instead. Yeah, that worked. So all I'm doing now is putting some little white squares in the yellow area. It should just give you an idea that, hey, some of these people got their windows lit up, you know, in the dark area. It doesn't show up so much, but we know it's there, you and me, and we're a team. No pinpricks of light sticking out here. Okay. There we go. Okay, so that's random. There we are. So there's our scene outside. Here's our two guys in the room. This is our initial thumbnail that we had to start with. And so this has allowed us to take this idea that we put together on our thumbnails. We just chose this one off of here, and there's our first panel. So I'm just coming in and just little pokes of value in here. Give a little form to our objects or characters. There we are. Sorry I'm not very chatty as I'm doing that. Apologize. I could sing you a lovely song. Oh, maybe not. Okay, so now we're pretty good on what we've put together for our image. And then last thing is our picture frame. And I will add some more colors and shapes in to the painting. So there we go. So here's our overall scene. And I suppose one more thing I could do, just to give it a little more something is the easiest wallpaper on planet Earth, folks. Is this a consistent line? No. No, why would I be that organized? You get the gist of it. Okay, so there's our wallpapered wall. And then we'll put this piece of the wall right here and shadow. Okay, so there's our room. So this is our panel 1. So we started with our little suggested thumbnail that we picked and chose for the first part of our piece that we're going to put together from using these. And so this is the first panel of Do a Comic Based on Cheeky Crank Calls. So we're starting a narrative between these two characters for the one character to say to the other, do you want to tell me why you think you do this? Do you want to tell me why you behave in the way that you do and feel compelled to call these people and be a bit of a nuisance? So I'm just going to put some... I forgot to put the shadow on his face, for heaven's sakes. What am I doing? Okay. Okay, so... There we go. Now, by establishing this, everything that we do for the rest of the page using these other panels is based on the beginning point, the initial point in our first image that we've drawn, and that is to have everybody reacting to his crank calls. And so the rest of the page gets to be whatever silly business that we want it to be. Like, let's say... you can do things like this. See these? I'll zoom in a little bit, okay, and we'll look at some of these panels. And to just think outside the box, okay? So here's our guy, our crank caller, talking to his therapist, trying to, understand why he does the crank calls and how he should stop. And so we get the rest of the panels on this page that we're doing are relating to the crank calls. So if we look at these other thumbnailed images that we put together earlier today, I mean, this image, I don't know what the original picture was when I started thumbnailing, but this could be a band having a practice and somebody's phone is ringing and the guy says, no calls during rehearsal, It's probably a crank call anyways. I mean, there's one insertion of a panel idea into the page that follows this narrative, okay? Or here's this could be a lady on the phone as she's walking home from her job down at the mine. I don't know. And she's on the phone and she's like, yeah. And he's like, hey, is your fridge running? Well, you better go and catch it then. Yeah. So that could be an image that we put into the page. You could have somebody just yelling, I hate getting crank calls. You can have somebody, we don't even get to hear what the crank calls are. This could be a person just clicking, turning his phone off. Yeah, nice try, pal. Click. Or, with this shot of the person by the window, looking kind of like Nosferatu, you could have the character say, that could be the final panel maybe, where he's like, why do I do it? Because it makes me feel powerful. I don't know. So many possibilities, but it really is just a case of picking and choosing from the various panels that we've already laid out today, just from stills from television shows and children's shows and grown-up shows and just whatever random images we spun the scroll wheel on the images on the phone and drew whatever ones that they stopped on. So that gives us lots of different choices, and it's because I don't even remember what the initial image was here. We've turned it into this, and it's just taking this basic framework, going off into our imagination, and fully rounding it out, right? So that'll be that'll be what I do with the rest of it. Like there's a great panel here where somebody looks like they might be flipping out, right? Like, or here's three people just, you gonna answer that? Nope. Or somebody, look, there's somebody having a bit of a breakdown there. Hands on the ears. Ah! It's just freeform screaming. So there we go. There's how we can apply this. But by taking our thumbnail, okay, off of this page of, and I'll just switch to this so you can see it. Off of all of these thumbnails that we did today, okay, what was that, an hour and a half, 2 hours of time? And we've got all of this material that we can use for our storytelling ventures, right? And so there we go. By applying it into our pages, reduces the amount of thinking that we have to do, but it also works as very inspiring. Okay, so I don't know where I'm going to go next. See, here's the thing. If I just sit down and I draw one-page stories entirely during the stream, when I post them the next day, it's kind of like, yeah, okay, that's what I thought it'd be. You know, that's not as fun. That's kind of why I don't draw the whole thing during a stream time, because, you know, there's got to be some kind of payoff, right, for people that give me the time and consideration that out of their lives to see what the result might be. So I appreciate that from people. So that's why I don't draw the entirety of a page. Even when I lay out a page in the stream, I'm still not going to finish it off during the stream, because again, you know, I don't want to bore your guts right out of you. So there we go. So I've got a bunch of different things that I've sort of shown. I'm going to put them down on the page. I think that one of the devices that I could use, and I'm just going to grab a piece of paper here to show you. If this is, let me use the brush end. If this is the landscape format page that I'm using. Now, we've already used this space for our first panel. Okay, so if I use some of these examples that we've talked about from our thumbnails today, and I can put, you know, let's say a good 3 examples of the stuff that he does that gives him the giggles, and you know, we could go back to our psychiatrist character and say, "And how does that make you feel? And do people enjoy the feelings that you give them?" You know, and then the remainder of this page would be responses of you know, madness and upset. And then that panel that we talked about earlier, this whole I feel powerful, you know, and we draw him in this context here where he's holding his phone in his hand as he's standing at the window looking like a Nosferatu or something. It's just, I feel evil and powerful and whatever. So we've kind of got an idea of where we're starting. We've kind of got an idea where we're ending. And we're literally just picking little thumbnails to work from. So this is one of the things that I do in my sketchbook. Now I don't go back and utilize them in a direct way like we are here, but I am constantly drawing little thumbnails. You know, whatever we're watching, Lori and I right now, we watch 24 Hours in ER or something. It's set in England, and it's about King's Hospital and people coming in largely from falling off of ladders or being old. And, you know, but as I'm watching this, I'll, you know, here I draw the nurse walking down a hall, or here's the one cart that has the towels and cloths that are being used in the course of saving someone's life, and just sort of strewn there. And so I'll catch these little moments as I'm watching the program and just scribble these things down. And that, you know, informs me in my head some of these a little more solidly. It helps me to remember these scenes. It helps me to remember these actions and these activities, so that when I sit down and I'm doing a story like we are today, I think to myself about, you know, in a psychiatrist's office, he's going to have a plant, he's going to have a bookshelf, he's going to have a painting hanging on the wall, you know, and you start just these sort of, it's not that you take it for granted, it's just that it becomes embedded. Allow yourself to draw more than just the objective thing that you're after. Well, I'm drawing a show, I'm drawing a comic about people living on a spaceship. Great. But when people are living on a spaceship, it's not just, you know, Star Trek fancy. Oh, hey, Paul just said fancy. Fancy seeing you here. Say, fancy seeing you, Paul. It's not just clean, uncluttered hallways of everybody in matching outfits. When they go into their quarters, if you have a conversation that takes place in somebody's quarters, then why not have clothing strewn about? Why not have their, you know, different rocks from alien worlds on a shelf? You know, like, allow yourself to populate your stories, because it tells something more about the characters. Or, with that in mind, watch how people sit. Watch how people stand. Watch how people walk, right? Watch how they hold themselves. Like, I've got, this is the shape of my hands, okay? I've got curved fingers here. And so I like to watch people's hands, you know, and when watching a program, if some doctor's doing something, doodly-doo, I largely use 3 fingers on my hands, and these guys are less and less required. But just because I have neuropathic extension, my fingers are curling up. So when I watch other people's hands, it helps to inform me about the spread of the hand, and because we draw from what we know, or we draw from the immediate source, or ourselves. And so I'm going to draw everybody with crooked fingers. I'm going to make every character look like he's played by Bill Nye. And I was a rock star once. You know, that guy, the guy that played the octopus dude in the Pirates movies. Yeah, he's got incredibly arthritic hands. Anyhow, so those are the sort of things I look for, so that I can draw hands holding a pen. Things like that. So allow yourself just to play with this little thumbnail method. I'll just put it up like this. So there's the 48 thumbnails that we drew this afternoon from just picking random images, can then, the little subtleties of how the bad guys are as they come out of the darkness in this panel, and that sort of gives an intensity to it. Or how this one's looking off the character in the third panel at the top. This guy is, so there's your monsters, and then here's this guy looking this way. I don't know if they're coming, and meanwhile he's looking, let them come, I'll feed them all, you know, whatever it is. But there's character in these dudes. Here's 2 guys helping their wounded friend along, or helping their drunken friend home from a party, or you know, he stepped on a jellyfish, you know, whatever. You know, here's somebody holding their ears. Is it because it's too loud, or they're just having a really emotionally frustrating moment? But these basic thumbnails, what the source image was, what the intention was of said source image, doesn't matter. You're just going to throw a lot of this down and pick and choose some of these things to help expand upon your visualizations for your own stories. So there's the first panel for today's page. The suggestions from Marshall Lee. It is, do a comic based on cheeky crank calls. So here's the therapist asking him, what's wrong with you? And there's our thumbnail that we referred to. Here's what we came up with when we were drawing our panel. And I'm just going to pick and choose from some of these little images from earlier today and build on our page. And this will be what I'm posting tomorrow. So, yeah. That's about it for me, folks, I think. Yeah, I could stick around and stuff, but it's been a long day, and I've still got some workity work to do. So, all right, everybody. Thank you very much for coming by. Thank you, Salty, for your suggestion. I put it in the book, and we'll be putting that in circulation. I love the idea of hunting stuffed animals on a safari. I think that you should be using a Nerf gun to do that. Hi, Paul. Thanks for coming out and spending some time, and anybody else that I missed. So if you got a suggestion, hit me up with it. Put it in the comments for any of the videos. Put it in comments on any of my social media posts. And, you know, if you're interested in talking about art and stuff like that, reach out to me. I'd love to sit down and chat with you here on the channel. So, in the meantime, let's go draw something. Let's make some stories together, folks. Anybody that sees this posted tomorrow is more than welcome to look at these panels. There's 48 of them, 48 framed images. Pick and choose whatever you want out of here and make a story. Okay? Okay. All right. Anything else to say? No, Corbin's sleeping. All right. So thanks very much, everybody. Have a great night. I will be back tomorrow at 1 o'clock. I'll be at 1 p.m. EST tomorrow afternoon. I'll be here streaming. So, yeah, if you want to come and hang out tomorrow, that'd be great. Okay. Thanks very much, everyone. Goodbye for now.